Welcome to Retrospective Cinema, a podcast wherein we'll endeavor week after week to see the full filmographies of chosen directors. We'll interpret, critique, and discuss. I'm your co-host, Ryan Saylor.
And I am your other co-host, Annie Morell. And this week we have the pleasure of discussing yet another Federico Fellini film, Il Bidone, or in English, The Swindle. Here's a clip.
Bell'affare che hai fatto tu a sposarti quando avevi 18 anni. Ah, vedi, non puoi più fare niente, sei finito. Guarda, Retta, cambia mestiere finché sei ancora in tempo, va. Cercati qualcosa di meglio.
That was once again from Il Bidone, or The Swindle. And really excited to talk about this one because I wasn't super excited. I loved La Strada so much that I was like, all right, this is one of the harder ones to find. It's not in a lot of places. It's on Criterion Channel, but it definitely doesn't have the same level of prestige that some of his others do, but I actually really liked it. I'm interested to hear your reaction because I really don't know. We haven't talked about it at all, really off mic. Did you like this one? Did you? What were your basic thoughts?
Yeah, I did like this one. I don't think I like it as much as his previous two, but I do think there's a lot to appreciate from this. I think the way he explores his kind of morality, especially male options of living, is again here. I think this is a good companion piece to Eva Deloney.
Absolutely.
But we have older men and they're still children, and we once again get to inflection points where people have to choose how they're going to live, and yeah, I'm sure we'll get into it. I guess up front, we are a full spoiler podcast, so if you're not into that, you can click away. But yeah, if you're listening to a episode on Il Bidone, you're probably you've probably seen the movie. This is about as obscure as this filmography is going to get, I think.
Yeah, I did think it was interesting. I read, I think it's like the first trivia on IMDb, that it's a standalone film, but it's also kind of a part of an unofficial trilogy of loneliness in Fellini's filmography. Did you read about this?
I saw that. Yeah, so I wasn't sure if he, well, I guess you can tell us right now, but did he actively plan that when writing, or what, did he just retroactively consider that like a thematic trilogy?
I believe it was just a retroactive thing. I think in general, you just mentioned Eva Deloney, and that one is not a part of the trilogy, but I think in this like neorealism genre that we're in at this point in his career, it does make sense that there would be thematic similarities, and clearly there are themes that he just enjoys exploring. But the three are La Strada, which was just prior to this, and then Nights of Cabiria, and in the middle we have Il Bidone. And having seen La Strada now as well, I mean, I definitely see thematic similarities from that as well. And yeah, I mean, this is very much about loneliness and kind of self-imposed loneliness in many ways. But I don't think it's necessarily something that you think about the conception of La Strada before Eva Deloney, like he had already written La Strada, and so I don't think it was necessarily a planned trilogy, but it just ends up being this thematic trilogy on loneliness, which, not having seen Nights of Cabiria, I don't know if I would agree with that yet. Probably, I'm assuming.
I won't say anything.
Yeah, don't say a word. I mean, I already know Cabiria a little bit, and I can see how she could be lonely.
Yeah, I that makes sense. But I was curious just because, there are directors like Lars von Trier where his trilogies are planned, even though they don't connect in any real way other than thematic. So, but that is interesting to hear. As for Il Bidone, so this film premiered at Venice, much like his previous film, but got pretty unanimous lukewarm reception. There was not the divisiveness of his last work. This one, the audience was just not there for it. And afterwards, the producers cut about 20 minutes from the film, getting it down to a cool 90, as you like to say, and distributed it, and then audiences still didn't show up for it. People did not discover this film. So with the Fellini 100 restoration project a couple years ago, which is ultimately that series of restorations is what led to the Criterion box set that I've talked about a number of times on here. They went back to the original negative and for the first time in wide release did restore the film as intended.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is the version we both watched. And yeah, we talked a tiny bit beforehand. I have no clue what they did or didn't cut.
It's not obvious, like, what you would even cut from this. It's not like, oh, yeah, some films, even in his prior filmography that we've watched, I've been like, it was a little slow here and there. This, I did not think the pacing was slow at all or, like, had any fat to be trimmed.
Yeah, it still is, much like his other films, a series of connected sequences that kind of build toward a climax. So I could see, maybe cutting just one of the sequences, but from what I've read, that's not exactly what happened. It seems like it was just some time here and there. So yeah, who knows? But I agree. I think this thing is very well paced, and I don't know why they thought trimming down the time would help it. It's not like it was, 4 hours or something.
Yeah. I mean, under 2 hours, that's great to me. I'm still okay with it. I was just, if you go on IMDb, it does say the runtime of that cut and not, the full 2 hour runtime. So I was kind of like, oh, is this the wrong movie? Is there weird bonus material? Like, what's happening? Because I hadn't read about the cutting, but sure glad I saw the full thing.
Mm-hmm.
Should we introduce our protagonists? Protagonists used very, very lightly.
That's what I was going to say. I assume you mean Augusto, but the film seems to start almost by following Picasso for quite a while.
Yeah. Well, I did say protagonists, plural, because I do think...
Oh, that didn't come through on my end. I apologize.
The gang of three. How dare you? It's Women's Appreciation Month or something. Women's History Month. How dare. No. Our three main characters, maybe I won't call them protagonists, because there's one that's somewhat sympathetic, one that is very sympathetic to me, and one that is irredeemable in my eyes. And I'm guessing you can guess, but yeah, we have Augusto, the kind of veteran of swindling, leading this con man trio. Picasso, or Carlo is his real name. They call him Picasso because he is an aspiring painter. And then Roberto is played by the same actor who played Fausto in I Vitelloni, and in many ways is kind of the same character.
Yeah, I thought that. I was like, because Fellini just really thinks this guy can play the terrible one.
He is a smarmy, he has a smarmy disposition to him naturally. Franco Fabrizi is the actor's name. And then, of course, we have Richard Basehart returning as Carlo / Picasso. He was the fool in La Strada, and he is also very much playing the same type, although I would say even more sympathetic than the fool.
Yeah.
But very, very childlike, whimsical, kind of floating through the world sort of man. And then Augusto, played by Broderick Crawford. So we have two American actors, Richard Basehart and Broderick Crawford, in this one. Carlo, definitely the only one that I think that we're intending to really, really root for, but the one character I thought was most sympathetic of the three. And then, of course, the love of my life, Giulietta Messina, playing Carlo's wife, Iris, though they say Iris. I think it's a way less pretty name in an Italian accent. So I will be calling her Iris.
Yeah, and she plays her most just kind of traditional role here, I think, that we've seen. She's just the doting wife character.
Yeah, definitely her most traditional role that we've seen her in so far. But she does great. I mean, I think she's highly effective in that role. But we open with what appears to be Augusto's main swindle, which is...
It's so good.
It kind of is, yeah. That he goes to some poor person's land and digs a hole and leaves some fake treasure and very pristine bones.
I guess I should immediately say the act of conning, not what I'm saying, is good.
Ryan loves thieves.
But the way it's presented and just the sheer commitment to the bit and the way we follow them, it's a very effective opening to the film.
Sure. Oh yeah.
But continue.
And even like it took me a second to really realize, because we don't see the kind of prep that goes into this scam, which is them, burying the treasure in the bones. We just see them showing up or getting their priest garb on, and then this trio showing up to these farmers and saying, "Oh, we have the last will and testament of a murderer who says that he buried his victim along with treasure on your land. Do you have a single tree on this land? That's where it's supposed to be buried." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, we do." And I was kind of like, well, what is the scam here? And then eventually you realize that the scam is that they're obviously representatives of the Catholic Church, and they're like, yeah, his request was to have 500 masses paid for by this fortune that he left. So
it's a lot.
We just want the money for 500 masses, only 1,000 lira each, a steal, really. So we need that money now, and then you get to keep the rest of this treasure. And yeah, they do it. It works, and it's later revealed to be fake treasure, and pretty obviously fake. But I think it's like 4 bones. It's like a skull, maybe a couple of femurs, and then a bone that one of them pulls it out and even says, like, "What is this?" I don't think it's a human bone even. So good, but not good, not actually good. And
right.
I liked that at the beginning we're a lot more, like, I was more okay with it, even though it did seem to be, ultimately a cruel kind of thievery to inflict upon these people. I was kind of like, they're being clever at least. Like,
right. That's what I was gonna say. For a second, it taps into kind of, we enjoy watching heists in movies because it's fun to see professionals pull off like what shouldn't be possible, even if in reality the vast majority of people watching a heist movie aren't like, yeah, I'm gonna go rob a bank.
This is a great idea.
It is still fun to watch people pull that off, but I think the twist on that here, which I say twist, I'm not even positive how common like a heist movie would have been at this time. I think Rafifi's still the year after. Oh, let me check myself real quick. Oh, it's the same year. Rafifi would have been 1955. Anyway, they hadn't seen that while making this film. But the twist on that is kind of, we get that neorealism where it's poor people hurting other poor people. And we see that there are the victims here. It's not like a large corporate bank or something. It's the lower class, which I think is what ties it back to that tradition.
Definitely. I did like the little moment. So it's this family, and there are moments with children throughout that I'd love to discuss. But we get the first hint of that with, there's this baby who has this cute little kind of hood on that sort of has little horns or like ears, kind of.
Yes,
and
great.
Carlo says, "You look like a little devil," to the baby, and is clearly very charmed. Like, Carlo and Augusto throughout are shown being very affectionate to children. And it's clear why, because both of them are fathers. Whereas we don't see that with Roberto, who is clearly just a wild card single guy with zero ties. Like, he is the ideal that Augusto eventually talks about.
Right.
The ideal type of man to be in this business. And children factor into like the ending very, very prominently as well, which we'll get there. Yeah, I liked that first little glimpse. I was like, oh, you look like a little devil. And then, they're doing this evil act and pretending to be priests, which is, a whole other level of bad, I would say. Taking advantage of the inherent trustworthiness of being a man of the cloth to steal from people.
And we see that, like, when they pull up, the woman answering the door doesn't really want to interact with them, but then when she sees that he's the Monsignor, is that right?
Monsignor.
Yeah, she's like, oh, well, come on in.
Yeah, and they gotta get back to His Eminence. They gotta get back to the Pope, so they get out of Dodge once they get the money. Next, we have Carlo returning to his family. That's when we first meet Iris and his daughter Silvana. And Iris thinks, or at least Carlo tells her, that he's off selling fabric with his friends / business partners. And so he gives her the money, his cut of what they got from the farmers. And it's very clear they are very poor. And so she's like, oh, I can finally pay off this bill and that bill. And he ends up giving her all the money. He's like, you take care of it. You know what to do with it. So this is a man who clearly cares for his family and is doing, to me, they kind of break down into 3 types of crooks. Carlo is kind of doing it out of a perceived necessity because he is an aspiring artist, an aspiring painter who does try to sell his art.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even really get a great glimpse of whether he's even talented. And I'm not sure that really matters ultimately, but in his mind, I think it's out of like, oh, well, I'm trying to, once I get my art career going off, like I wouldn't be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Alberto, it's his way of life. It's through habit that he's doing this. It's all he knows. It's all he's been doing all his life. And he even comments that like, oh man, these kind of novices that I'm having to work with these days. It's like he's been around the bend. And then Roberto, it's kind of just laziness and entitlement. It's again very similar to that actor's character Fausto in Eve Alone, where it's like he just wants to mess around. All those guys. I think he's really similar. He just wants to be able to party and have a good time and sleep and dance with women. And yeah, he doesn't think he should have to work is the kind of vibe.
No.
I mean, I think none of them kind of do in different ways. But yeah, Carlo, to me, most sympathetic man, and his poor wife appears to be none the wiser, but we then later on get a glimpse of that she knows something bad is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really liked about that kind of scene of him coming home, because she was like, well, you were supposed to be home yesterday. And he's like, oh, I got delayed or whatever. And then he brings his daughter this little purse and says like, oh, like some lady like gave it to me. And his daughter says, I don't believe him about this purse. And it's this kind of, kids can be so intuitive
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. And, obviously it does appear to be just like a lighthearted kind of tale that he's telling. And maybe she thinks that he just bought it for her. But I liked that little moment of like, yeah, even the kid knows that you're kind of full of it.
A couple things that I want to talk about. I do think Roberto does have ambition outside of this. I do want to push back a little on that. Though,
ooh,
he's never going to...
singing?
Yeah, I actually think... he's never going to pursue it, and I think it's a gusto that says, you're never actually going to do that. But I think in his mind, he's where Carlo is, where he's like, I'll do this until my singing works out. But I think unlike Carlo, he's not pursuing his singing at all, so it's a means to an end just for him to justify that he's going to swindle forever or scam forever, con forever. But I do.
Oh, so would you say that's out of laziness, like I just said?
Well, sure, but it's more than that. I think he's lying to himself. It's not just that he's lying to others. Like, I think there is a self-deception going on that I think is interesting. It doesn't change his actions, but yeah.
Okay.
And then on Carlo, this is jumping way ahead, but based on the last time we see him and his final scenes, do you think he does get out of the profession after the movie? I was curious to ask that.
It's a hope that he does.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't know. I think he's very aware that he's kind of at the precipice of either, he gets out of this life right now, or his wife leaves him and takes their kid, which he loves her so much. And I loved that depiction throughout, and loves his daughter so much, cares so much about his family. So he doesn't want that to happen, but he doesn't feel like he has other options. And, this leans into the neorealism of it all, because it's kind of true at this time. In the 50s, again, we're in post-war Italy. Everyone is so poor. There's not a lot of work. The economy is in shambles. So I think there's a lot more sympathy there than if it's just like, oh, well, why don't you just go out and get a job? And it's a little different than even Eve Alone, because those men, those young men, were all appeared to be from a little more well-off, well-established families.
They have help, yeah.
Yeah, whereas Carlo and Roberto even says this at one point. Carlo is poor. When there's this New Year's party they go to, and Roberto says something like, oh wow, this is really, a party for the masses. They let you in. And I genuinely don't know.
Mm.
And I don't think we get a clear answer from the text. My hope is that was his moment of realization that, like, I need to get my stuff together. And I think it makes sense if you think about this is jumping to the end, where the other two characters end up.
Sure.
To think that Carlo maybe made it out, because Augusto does not make it out. And we'll get more into that later, I'm sure. And Roberto continues as well. Augusto does not make it out in a tragic end, and Roberto is able to kind of abscond to, I think, Milan or something, and continue to con people. He's got a fancy car again, Augusto finds out. So yeah, I think it's my hope more than anything. And if that is our final glimpse of Carlo, where he's talking about, like, oh, my wife's going to leave me, then I think that's probably the best textual evidence that we have that is what's going to happen, that he will leave that life and get his life together and start living more honestly. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think, especially in context of his other films, I think Carlo makes it. I think with us seeing that with Meraldo and Eva Toloni, and kind of the plea of the audience, or plea for the audience in La Strada being to live better than these characters do, I think Carlo makes it. But yeah, it is left open, and I think it's a good choice that it is left open.
I agree. Yeah, the uncertainty of it all. But yeah, and again, a message of hope, ultimately, just like we talked about in Eva Toloni, which, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I don't know, go listen to that episode.
And watch that movie.
And watch that movie, yeah. Oh my goodness. Although, to be honest, if you're here listening to this, you've probably seen Eva Toloni.
I actually did see, I didn't write down the user, unfortunately, but I did see a Letterboxd review that started, "You may be wondering how this was my first Fellini film for Il Bidone."
That's so funny. I am. Now I got to find that review. How and why? Really quick, in between, the three of them go to this club after Carlo's kind of reconciliation with his family. And we get our, per tradition, guy doing cool
roller skate dancing.
Cool little bit. Roller skate dance. Yeah, at first I was like, oh yeah, he's dancing. And then I realized he was wearing roller skates.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was like, oh, Fellini. It's really a calling card of his. And I continue to love it.
He rolls out there, and I was like, how much of this performance are we gonna get to see? And it's not that long, but I was happy, that it's definitely just become something to look for. And I feel like it almost has to be not just intentional for Fellini to be like, let me incorporate some weird performance, but it has been a different weird performance in each film.
Yes.
So
it's not like, oh, there's a lot of fire breathers.
Exactly. So yeah, I have to assume at this point that, he's sitting down with his co-writers, like, can we incorporate, checks notes, roller skate dancing?
What haven't we done yet? Yeah, it's certainly a trademark at this point of his, and I love it so much.
Yeah.
And then we get to what I think is definitely the worst scheme that we see that the trio pulls off, which is they go to this incredibly poor neighborhood of, like, not even real houses, like tenement.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Italian equivalent term would be, but kind of like Hoovervilles,
right,
in the United States, of just, makeshift
people waiting
homes.
For government housing.
People waiting for the public housing, and they impersonate government officials who are there to dole out this housing. And you have all these people going, and it's a mob. It becomes a mob very quickly once these people realize who this trio are supposed to be. And you have people saying, like, oh, I've been waiting 2 or 3 years, I've heard nothing from the government, like, finally. And Augusto is asking for, not that much money, really, but for poor people, very much money, their life savings at this point, all they have.
Yeah, and they're borrowing from each other and fighting over each other.
It's like 9,000 lira.
Yeah, it's hard to watch.
And yeah, it's really hard to watch. And it's these people who, have been waiting for real homes, because again, this is post-war Italy, and the government is trying to, get the economy back and help poor people, which I guess is cool of Italy to be doing. But not cool of these guys to be pretending, because then you think about like, oh, well, if the government does ever come through for these people, then they won't have the money because you still have to pay for the housing. And it's very, very cheap housing, but they still have to be able to pay for it once their turn does actually come up. So yeah, that's when I was like, oh boy, this is bad. And there are a lot of kids around too. Again, we get Carlo and Augusto kind of interacting with these kids in this little community. Carlo like takes a kid off of a roof. At one point, he's like, "You shouldn't be up here. What are you doing?" And Augusto ruffles another kid's hair, and then we get right after that Carlo buying from the street merchant some bubbles for his child, and he's kind of playing around with the bubbles, and it's the most childlike I think that he is in the film. And Augusto says to Carlo, like, "You're a kid. You know, look at you. You might as well buy these bubbles for yourself."
Which, by the end, my interpretation of that moment did change, because I think Augusto's just kind of lashing out.
Yeah.
Because he knows that if this person gets attached to like his family and just his, the people relying on him, he's going to be bad as a conman.
Yeah, I mean, he's absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when Augusto says that you can't just be like holding on to your wife's apron strings or something like that. You have to be alone to be in this business, I think is the exact quote. Which that happens a little later. But yeah, the bubble scene is kind of a precursor to that conversation for sure. Ronaldo? You talk about Ronaldo?
Who?
Actually, I have a question.
Ronaldo
is...
I kept reading on the subtitles, seeing Rinaldo, Rin, really threw me off. But yes.
Yeah. So Augusto. I keep saying Augusto. I don't know. I'm Americanizing some of the names, so come at me if you want, I guess.
Augusto, Iris, Carlo,
Carl, Robert,
Carl. There you go.
Ronald. Augusto's old friend Ronaldo, they run into him, and he's in this fancy car, and he's got this pretty lady with him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, like I have a nice place, and I left my wife and kid in Milan, and I'm here in Rome, or no, in Switzerland actually."
Sweden. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, because he says you can't beat the Swedish education. Which I don't know if that's true or not, but I think that's what Swiss. He says.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Not that it really, yeah. I don't know if that's true. I think so. That makes sense for Scandinavian countries. But I don't know. In the 50s, who knows?
But yeah, I think to him, he's just like, I need them far away from me. But that is, he has this justification.
Yeah.
I also he has the woman with him that's clearly his mistress in some way or another, but he doesn't treat her well at all. And when they're getting into the car, he doesn't have her get out, and he folds her seat forward, so he just like crushes her. And I'd never seen that in any film ever, and it really caught me off guard.
Yeah, really, really not treating the mistress well, and also cheating on the mistress at the party, or trying to.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, just can't get enough. But we learn from Ronaldo that Augusto is known as Monsignor Bidone, because clearly the priest treasure scheme is something that he's done many, many, many times, and they get invited to Ronaldo's New Year's party, and I love this entire, it's the scene with the most people, certainly, and the most action. And
before you get all into that, because there's a lot there, I do want to talk a little bit about the nuance of the title. So Il Bidone is slang for scam, so the swindle's not a bad translation, but it literally just means like the trash can or like the bin.
Oh
yeah, so it's a slang word. So yeah, when he calls his friend like that, I wondered if there was, kind of that double meaning of like, oh, like he's Mr. Scam, but also like he's Mr. Trash, So yeah, I thought that was interesting. And I'm not positive, I was just trying to read about the word. So maybe that wasn't intended, but I feel like it was.
Yeah, I think, we've seen a little bit of double meaning in a lot of his titles, or kind of hidden meaning in his titles. We talked about the White Cheek and of course I Vidoloni as well.
Sure.
So that would make sense to me. Yeah, I mean, it's clear that Ronaldo does not take Augusto seriously.
Right.
Ultimately. Because Augusto does try to like start a scam with him. Oh, I did have a question before we get to the party. Did Ronaldo make his money selling cocaine? Is that the implication? It doesn't really matter.
I missed this. If that was the what's your evidence?
At one point, I can't remember who exactly all is in this scene, but it's like a couple of the guys, and I think Iris is also there, and so it's just a pantomime. But they say like, "Oh yeah, Ronaldo like made his money," and then I want to say it's Roberto. He kind of taps his nose with two fingers, you know.
Oh.
But I don't know. Like, I truly don't even know. Maybe I should look up the history of cocaine. Like, was cocaine like a really big thing in Italy in the 50s? I'm Googling cocaine 50s Italy.
FBI, stop where you're
History of cocaine. Oh, I should have. Oh.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Coca leaves have been used by indigenous South Americans for thousands of years. Okay, this I knew.
It all began in 1000 BC.
Popularizations. In 1859, an Italian doctor returned from Peru where he had witnessed firsthand the use of coca by the local indigenous peoples. He proceeded to experiment on himself, and upon his return to Milan, he wrote a paper in which he described the effects. So it did come to Italy.
Okay.
In the mid 1850s.
Wow, you might be on
my gosh,
some real subtext here at that point.
Seriously, because then, you know, there's thank you, Wikipedia. Pope Leo the 13th purportedly carried a hip flask of the coca-treated Vin Mariani with him. So yeah, like coca wine was a thing. Wow.
Very interesting.
It was used to treat morphine addiction. Yeah, so I think that's definitely...
Wait, did you just say they treated morphine addiction with cocaine addiction, essentially?
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely cocaine was a thing, or, you know, some form of cocaine was a thing.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you might be onto something there. I totally missed that.
Yeah, and it was literally that moment, and then we don't. That's my only piece of evidence, but that was, you know, some sort of drug that you snort, maybe. I think he's like a drug guy, because he does appear to be like wealthy, and that's kind of the thing, too, that Augusto is after, is not these comparatively tiny scams that lead to small payouts, but something either consistent that he's trying to pitch to Ronaldo, or just like a really big score, which is kind of impossible when you're surrounded by poverty. And the rich are a lot less scammable, it appears. Like, we see that at the party throughout. The poor are the ones that they're able to take advantage of, and they aren't. None of them are very good. Well, Carlo doesn't really try, but Augusto and Roberto are not good at scamming rich people, or you know, trying to get wealthy people to be a part of their scams.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, even Augusto's like, you know, big ongoing score, because they are making a decent amount of money every time they do this buried treasure scam.
Yeah,
it's split like 8 ways. So by the time it's all divided up, he's, you know, not making that much more money than anything else, which is probably what he ends up considering at the end of the movie, which we keep alluding to.
Yeah, really. They make 400,000 lira from the farmers at the beginning, and yeah, if you split that up, it's like what when he talks to his daughter, which we haven't talked about, but Alberto's daughter, and his daughter's like, oh yeah, my friends have jobs as cashiers and they make like 35,000 lira a month, and he's like, that's nothing to live on, and it's like, well, but that's like what you're making from these schemes.
I think that's his point, is like, as he's considering going straight, he's seeing like, you know, he made as much as this like honest worker made in a month, he made in a day.
Yeah.
And he then, you know, he's able to keep making more after that. So yeah, it's very interesting. There's a lot of good conversation on that topic, and that scene where he's talking to his daughter is one of my favorites in the movie.
But should we talk about the party first?
Yes.
The New Year's
yeah, we keep jumping
party?
around it. It's so good.
Yeah. So Augusto gets invited to this party, and he's kind of like, oh, well, I had plans with Carlo and his wife, and Ronaldo insists, like, no, I expect you to show up at 10 p.m. to this party. And so he ends up inviting Iris and Carlo as well. And then we see that Roberto has also somehow gotten an invitation to this, and we get the little nod to the lower class status of Carlo and Augusto to some extent. Roberto kind of pretending to be higher status, I think, more than anything. We get a lot of joyful and kind of like sexy dancing sequences from the party goers.
Yeah,
I enjoy.
I'm starting to notice, I think Fellini does like just, filming women move also. Not in
absolutely.
Not in a like super objectifying way or anything, but yeah, there's been enough shots across the filmography that I'm like, okay.
And somewhat like unnecessary to the greater endeavor of the
tastefully erotic.
And specifically, there's like tastefully erotic. There's some woman that we get like she's like front and center, shimmying her shoulders and dancing and gyrating, and she's not anyone.
Yeah, and she makes direct eye contact with the audience, like as in like the camera.
Yes, I loved that. I loved that shot, and the kind of fluidity of the camera through that dancing scene. I really appreciated how that was filmed. We also get Carlo trying to sell his painting to Ronaldo.
Yeah.
He brought a painting that we get like the slightest glimpse of, but as I alluded to earlier, I couldn't tell if it was a good painting or not. Like we really don't know. His wife clearly believes in him, and I think Iris is a very grounded, realistic woman. So I think that's maybe the only evidence that we have that it's not like, I think she would be like, hey, can you get a real job? She believes that he can do this,
that's fair.
That he has the capacity to. And she even says, when midnight hits, we got to get like this year, we got to do like a gallery show for you. And he's like, whatever you want. So she clearly believes in him and is initially, kind of dazzled by the party. She says she's underdressed. She maybe wouldn't have come because there are all these kind of grand, sparkly evening gowns around her, and she's beautifully dressed, but yeah, definitely less flashily dressed, perhaps. And then she gets a glimpse of the true nature of these three men, which is when Roberto gets accused of, I'm assuming rightfully so, of stealing a gold cigarette case off of someone.
No, it's a great scene because eventually Roberto's even told, like, play it off like a joke, man, whatever you need to do. And he's like, yep, I was joking.
Very tense.
And he's like, all right, now get out. Yeah. Ugh.
I liked that whole sequence for his character too, because not only is, he has that little attempt at theft, like nothing is enough for him. And any chance he gets, he's trying to do something, because he's also at that party. He's brought this like rich old lady who he literally calls ugly to her face. He's trying to work her.
Yeah, she doesn't quite speak Italian.
Yeah.
It seems like.
To me, it's just he thinks he's invincible. There's this kind of egotistical invincibility happening in his mind that immediately gets challenged. And again, we see that they can't do this stuff. They can't pull this stuff on rich people. It doesn't work for any of them. Augusto does not. Augusto proposes a business plan, ? Maybe still shady, but like he wants to rent out this space and is like, Ronaldo, you could make, this amount of money a week or whatever. And he's like, no, man, I'm not going to do business with you. You're a scammer. Carlo unsuccessfully tries to sell his painting, and then Roberto tries a couple different scams that don't really appear to pan out. And they can only prey on the vulnerable.
Yeah, which
and the poor.
I wondered, and I'm not sure if it's intended or not, but I do think there's a reading of that within the film, that the reason, these rich people are impossible to con is like, you have to be able to con to get rich. I almost feel like is what the film's saying.
Well, yeah. I mean, Ronaldo,
sure,
I think, was a former con man, or maybe just, did it successfully enough that he's now rich. I absolutely agree with that.
All right, cool. Yeah, because I thought that was interesting. I do think we did skip over an important moment, though. This party kind of falls apart for a bit with this woman that wants to get into beauty pageants.
Oh, yeah. This was awful.
Yeah.
They don't believe that her breasts are real?
They just have a weird justification. But before we get all into that, so Irene Safaro is the actress. Very striking, like, face and hair. And I was just like, who is this person? So I looked her up. So she won Miss Roma a couple years before the film and went into acting just for about 4 or 5 years. And she did a number of significant movies to Italy. I think most of them have kind of faded since then, but she ended up retiring very quickly, just about 4 years later, to focus on her family. But yeah, so that's who she is. She was brand new, but also like looked like they'd clearly chosen her for this part. So I was curious who she was, and yeah, that's who she was.
Wow, so an actual beauty pageant winner.
Yeah, playing beauty pageant contender in this movie.
So then they're like, oh, we gotta check and she kind of says like, okay, I'll show you. Like if you don't believe me, and then we kind of cut away from that moment. And then we come back to it. We don't see her, but it's implied that she's at least got her breasts out, maybe fully nude. Who knows? Because she was wearing a dress. And it's this mob of men, like all kind of assaulting her. And then is it Ronaldo that kind of pulls her out of this and pulls her into another room, but not really to save her, just to have her for himself to assault, I guess.
Yeah, and then his wife's like, what is this? And...
Well, not his wife, his mistress.
Oh, right. Yeah, you're so right.
Yeah, so it's like, you can't even... What the heck? One mistress, not enough? Can't even be loyal to her? And he's like, I was just helping her. I was helping a lady in distress. Excuse me. Boo.
Yeah, the vibe goes south real quick. And I think that's the other side of things. I'm glad it's in the film is when you have this much wealth. I mean, historically, we just see that everyone kind of becomes usable to you. And so we have these men, talking about like, oh, we can all get you into a beauty pageant, whatever. And then the second they get an opportunity, they're, actively harming this woman.
Yeah. Woke King Fellini continues to make some good points about the status of women. I think we see that in Iris obviously a lot, and even some of the really minor female characters like Augusto's daughter. Who you want to talk about? Augusto's daughter?
Yeah, absolutely. So we make it quite a while into the film, like probably an hour before she shows up for the first time, and he runs into her.
Yeah, they just run into each other on the street.
Totally by accident. Yeah, so she asks her, she's at college and her class gets canceled. And so she's walking home and they run into each other and he says like, oh, what are you doing out? And she explains this. Anyway, there are a lot of layers going on because there's this like, they're both clearly happy to see each other. But then as the conversation goes on and he's talking about like, oh, we'll catch up, I'll call you. Like she starts to really draw back because, she's heard this before. And there's also this thing going on where he's asking about her mother, but like up to this point in the film, unless I missed something, like we don't even know that he has a family.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, so there's subtext there. I mean, clearly, like he's distances himself from them, and yeah, there's a lot going on in this first conversation. But his daughter is happy to see him. It's not like she's shying him out, but she's very tentative. It's cool, good sequence and good acting from. I did not know her before the film. I didn't look her up, but Lorella De Luca, I think is how you say her name.
I liked her a lot as well. She's also beautiful. A very like striking young woman. Which is
what her role is, because Gusto's like, oh my gosh, you became a young woman while I wasn't looking, and that's what starts to send him on this thing.
He does say that, or she says like, I haven't seen you since last Christmas, and we know that it's right after New Year's, so it's been over a year. So like, even in a year, you can miss a lot.
Yeah, especially at that age
of your child growing up.
People change very rapidly.
Switching back really quick to after the party. So that happens after the party as well. But directly after the party, when Iris and Carlo leave, they have this argument out in the street because she's just witnessed Roberto being called out for stealing the cigarette case. And she says, she's like, I know what's going on. Like these guys are sketchy. Why are you hanging out with these guys? Like you're clearly not doing what you said you were doing for work.
Right.
And she says, you'll see what I'll do to you one of these days if you continue this. And it's this kind of very strong moment for her character of standing up for herself and her daughter, and him denying, not doing a very convincing job of it. And that starts him on his. So I liked that scene happened, and then we immediately get the Augusto and his daughter scene, because I think
these characters are reaching their inflection points for sure.
Yes, yeah. Well, but I think Augusto is like, that scene with Patrizia is like very much how Carlo's life could go, where he becomes estranged from his daughter, and because he's chosen this life of crime.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they do a little mini scam at a Shell gas station.
Yeah, which I think also helped Augusto be like, what am I doing? Because they're doing this thing where you get 2 gallons of gas, and then you say, I'm going to pay you back, and you give them your jacket as whatever
Collateral.
that's called. Yes, good job. Collateral. And
Yeah, I know words.
I didn't. And they just keep going around doing this, and they're trading who interacts with the gas station worker each time. And you can just see on Augusto's face, he's like, I'm 48 and doing this.
And I loved that the one like main sequence that we got with the older guy at the first Shell station, where he's like, yeah, I can't remember who says it, but one of them, it's either Augusto or Roberto, is like, this gig where you do nothing, like, is kind of criticizing this guy. And he's like, I am working. I am putting food on the table, and I'm providing for my family by doing this. This is honest work. And meanwhile, as they're running a scheme against him.
Right. Anyway, so we get to the end of the night. Carlo's having a breakdown. Augusto's questioning his life decisions. And and that is the last time we see Carlo, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So he just kind of says, like, I don't know that I can do this anymore, because if I keep doing this, I'm gonna lose everything. And the shot's kind of like looking down at him from like the top of the stairs. And yeah, I think his fate, like we talked about, is left open, but I hope he changed.
Me too. I do want to point out during that sequence with Augusto and Carlo, where Augusto says, you have to be alone to be in this business. There's this awesome, it's just, there are shots where it's just Carlo, but then, and it's the two of them talking, but it's like just showing Carlo like looking off to the left where Augusto is, but then there's a wall right behind them, and you can see Augusto's profile. And so
shadow?
It is still like they're talking.
Yeah.
In shadow, yes.
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 I thought it was so effective too. And I thought,
absolutely,
like, symbolically, like, I mean, because he's reckoning with this man is who he could become, and he doesn't want to. And so like the shadow literally looming over him. Yeah. I just thought it was so effective.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And then the next thing we get is Augusto doing what he promised his daughter. He takes her to the movies and for a meal, I think. And she is talking about how she wants to go to college, but she's not sure how she's going to be able to pay for it. And that's when we get the talk about, my friend is a cashier, and he's like, oh, that's not very much money. And she says, young people today have to work for a living.
Right.
I was like, wow. Ooh. And then it all comes crashing down on him, because in the movie theater, he gets recognized. Well, he recognizes first a couple people who he has swindled.
I did think this was so interesting, because from the very first time that we see him swindling, I assumed that at some point, the reckoning comes from anyone we're seeing him interact with eventually find him again. But it's not even one that we see on camera. It's like, some people are like, yeah, a couple months ago, you sold me antibiotics that weren't real, and my friend almost died.
Well, and again, it's not, it's people who have the money to go out to the movies. So it's not super poor people that ultimately get him. It's a little bit upper, maybe middle class people who ultimately are his downfall. And he gets arrested. Before giving, I did like this little moment. He gives his daughter one of the fake watches, and she's like, oh, this is so pretty. And he's like, no, he knows that it's like a cheap knockoff or something like that. And he's like, it's fake. And she's like, I like it. And I liked that as a kind of metaphor for he only sees value in like monetary gain, whereas you can find beauty and worth in everyday, like, small things. Like you could live a fulfilling life. You could find happiness, and it doesn't have to involve tons of money. That's not inherent to, and she's even saying like, yeah, I'll be able to work part-time and pay my way in school. And he's like, I'll pay for it. You don't need to do that. But it's like she is making it as a woman too, as a young woman in this time. Like she is able to do it. It is possible. to be successful in life without stomping all over other people or stealing from other people, and he just can't imagine that.
Right. So he gets, at this point, between Carlo's breakdown and then reuniting with his daughter and then being arrested and released. I guess we didn't say that yet. And the police officer says, don't let me see you again. He keeps getting chances and he doesn't take them. And finally we get to this sequence that starts the end of the film. So they go and once again, they're doing the priest bit. And
yeah, with a totally different crew, because
all of his
Carlo's, and I think maybe that's our other piece of evidence that Carlo did get out of the game. Actually, the fact that he's not a part of that crew, and I mean we know that Roberto's not a part of that crew because he's in Milan, so we do get that. Yeah, actually, now I'm like,
okay,
full on. I think Carlo made it out, which thank goodness.
Yeah, I like that. But yeah, so with his new crew, very different set of circumstances, but just kind of made me think of The Departed, where once the full crew is switched, there's just no loyalty left and things are bound to fall apart.
Yeah.
That's what happens here.
Mm-hmm.
So they go out and they start scamming this family, and Augusto ends up interacting with the family's daughter who contracted polio and now is basically paralyzed from the waist down. She's totally content with her life. She feels burdensome to her family and that bothers her. But she's like, yeah, no, I'm fine with myself. And at first, Augusto can't even in character, can't process that. But it's ultimately he's interacting with her. And I really thought, during the whole scene, I was like, oh, he's going to give up the con. He's going to give them the money because this reminds him of his daughter. And that kind of thing is happening. But we ultimately
don't see it.
Yeah, we don't see it there. And we're about to learn that he did not give them the money, but...
Do you think? I think it's... I understand why you're saying that.
Okay.
But I was actually going to ask you the question, did he really give the money back?
Well,
we don't see it.
Well, we see all the money they take off him after...
Yeah, but this is a man... To me, I took that as... That could easily have been money that he already had.
Okay.
And they didn't count it, so and we didn't see them go oh yeah, the money's all this is the total.
Okay.
So I interpreted that as a little more ambiguous, which I kind of liked. My fan theory, I guess, is I think the money on his person is for his daughter.
Right.
To me,
no, I agree with that.
Whether or not he stole it, that is why he's no, I'm not going to give. I'm done. He is saying, I'm done with this life.
Right. Starting from the top for a sec. So he leaves this family. We don't see him give her the money. And then when the crew has successfully finished the heist, they're standing by the car and he says, oh, I gave her the money. I don't have it. And they don't believe him. So they start trying to shake him down. And they ultimately throw a rock at him, hits him in the head. He's mortally wounded, but at the very least severely injured is what they know.
He hurts his back on a rock, too, because he kind of falls back on a rock.
Which also, I mean, geez, the way they filmed that rock thing, there's no way that was safe. I was like, oh, goodness.
Oh, no. Yeah.
The rock, goes right by the camera. And, yeah, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, and they find all this money on him. So that's what I don't think he gave the family the money. I think you're right that he decided to give the money to his daughter. I think he has, a, somewhat redeeming idea for the money, though he's still stealing from a family.
Yeah, yeah, you're probably right.
But
based on what we know about the character, yeah.
But I do, it is interesting to consider that maybe he did give them the money, and then this is just the rest of his money. But I don't think that's what it is. I think the way I interpret thematically the ending is that he ultimately, his inability to make the money without swindling someone is what kills him. So
yeah,
that's part of why I'm pretty sure that he did try to pull a fast one on his crew.
Yeah, which I don't know what when he started running, I was like, "Where are you going, man?"
Sure.
What's the plan here? And I think it's just it's the level of he's cornered. It's the level of desperation that he's come to. It's very sad. He seems so small in that moment when he starts running away from them down that hill.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get to the very, very end, I want to shout out Nino Rota's score for this because it's very playful. It's very cheeky.
It's a little old-timey, I thought also.
In the beginning, old-timey, yeah. And then it disappears in this final sequence. Like, there's no music as he's talking to the daughter with polio. There's no music for the entire rock throwing bit, and up until the end, I don't think there's really any music at all. So I liked that choice. But yeah, they take the money off of him and they leave him for dead in the middle of nowhere. And this was kind of morbidly funny to me. He's there for like many hours. There's a car. He thinks they've got to come back for me. Like, the one guy who he really appeals to, he thinks might actually come back. And they don't. And it becomes like the next day, and he's, doing bad. He's doing bad.
Yeah, about to die.
And blood starts to come out of his mouth. Like, he's clearly internally bleeding. And he's, I'm better now. I can do it. Right after that.
Sure.
Which I thought was, again, morbidly funny. Not actually in the context. Like, I didn't laugh at it, but I was like, that's my humor right there. I'm better now. And then he starts to kind of crawl up this hill, and he sees this family, again, like poor farmers. Maybe I assume it's not the same family because it's like young children, not the family that he scammed. And his final line is, "Wait for me, I'm coming with you." And that's how we end. And then he certainly dies after that, because they don't hear him. And
there's a couple things in that final moment that I love. First of all, I mean, he could literally be hallucinating, and like, this family's dead, and he's literally saying, "I'm coming with you."
Ooh, love that.
But also, he was planning on, if he is planning on giving the money to his daughter, and this was his, one last job, as the trope goes, he was going with them in the sense that he was going to be a family man going forward, and not living this life of crime. So yeah, I just think it's a great final line that works in a number of ways.
Yeah, the layers of it are really lovely and sad. Absolutely. I liked the parallel of the end of La Strada with this ending, where it's a man kind of at in perhaps his last moments, definitely his last moments in this case.
Sure.
Finally realizing too late that
he's
made the wrong decision.
Yeah.
All his life, over and over and over again, he's made the wrong decision, and he realizes it much, much too late. So, and he's alone. If this is part of the trilogy of loneliness, then we get that lonely end again with this one. He has no one. I mean, he does, but at the same time, it's so interesting because he does, like, I think still his daughter would probably take him back.
Yeah, if
he only chose a life on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, self-inflicted again.
Well,
with all that, would you recommend the film?
I would. I think I have not been very coy about my opinion about this. I really liked it a lot. I think we were talking before either of us watched this, will this be another hidden gem? And I don't think it's quite there, but I do think that it's up there so far.
Yeah, it's definitely worth consideration and conversation.
For me, like, I liked this better than The White Sheik. I like this better than Variety Lights. And yeah, it being a part of this thematic trilogy, whether that's incidental or not, I'm enjoying the exploration of loneliness and of what the meaning of life is, and the Italian neorealism of it all. And yeah, I absolutely would. And gotta stand up for my girl Giulietta Messina. Though she's not nearly as consequential in this, but she gives a great performance again. And everyone very strong, incredibly well cast. Some really, really cool, inventive ways of filming certain sequences. I continue to really enjoy his work. So yes, I would recommend this one. Would you?
Yeah, I would. I think it sounds like you liked it more than me. I think I would. I think it fits great in the spot in the filmography. I think if you're a fan of Fellini, I mean, this definitely is something to seek out, because it's a lot of those themes from his previous films developing still, and a lot of his trademarks showing up. But I do think it just maybe felt a little less special than some of his other stuff. I know you said, like, with The White Sheik, that the farcical half felt, maybe sitcom-y or something that we've seen a lot at this point. I think the narrative arc of this man that's, professional crime, something or other, that is going to eventually meet his downfall, I've seen a lot as well at this point. So I think in that way, maybe this felt, just a little less special, I think is how I would word it. But even still, I think everything you said is correct. It is very well paced. I mean, this thing moves, which perhaps it moves faster than I think anything we've seen so far, honestly.
I would agree. Yeah. I think it's the best paced of any of them at this point in the filmography.
Yeah. Well, differently paced, at least to my taste. Because, I actually really like the pacing of Eva Delone, for example, but it's a much slower movie. But I think that works for that.
Sure.
But yeah, no, I think this thing is accessible. I think it makes sense that it hasn't been discovered if, for 50 years, or I didn't even do the math, but at least that long, almost 70 years, you didn't have the whole film, and it hadn't been restored. I understand why people haven't found it, but hopefully now that there is an accessible version out there, people start to see this.
We're doing our part.
It's great.
Spreading the word.
We are doing our part.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I'm sure,
dear listener.
I had no way of discovering this without you guys.
Yeah. The internet, unhelpful. Criterion, whatever. Retrospective cinema, they did it.
Yeah,
bringing it back.
But yeah, if the Criterion streams of Il Bidone go up, I mean, I once again am requesting they sponsor us, because we'd be shouting them out.
It'd be so cool. It's my dream. One day. Do you want to do next week? You want me to do next week?
Yeah, sure. So we are starting a run of classics. I mean, across the next 3 weeks, we have Nights of Cabiria, La Dolce Vita, and 8.5. So buckle up. I mean, that's three of the all-time classics right there. But yeah, specifically next week is Nights of Cabiria. It's a rewatch for me. I'm very excited to revisit it. I loved it at the time, and I'm excited.
First time watch for me.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to see it. I think I could be wrong, but I think you'll really go for it.
It's my girl,
yeah,
Julieta. Of course, I'm gonna like it.
Until then, you can talk to us however you want. We have an email, retrospectivecinemapodcast@gmail.com. Feel free to write to us whether you agree, disagree, or have any other thoughts. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at retro_sin, CIN. Like I mentioned last week, there are Reddit threads floating out there for every film this marathon, so feel free to hunt those down. There actually is some good discussion going on. It's been fun. So I also have a Letterboxd at Ryan Loves Film.
As do I, at Annie Morell. And yeah, the Oscars will have happened by the time this comes out.
Yeah, so when we record there tomorrow, so that's exciting.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so pumped. I'm waiting until the 11th hour to watch the last of the Best Picture nominees that I haven't seen, F1. Still haven't done it. Keep delaying it. I think I even mentioned it in last week's episode.
But that will
be tonight. Whether you're completing the last of the trilogy of loneliness with us, with Nights of Cabiria, or just catching up with The Swindle now because you somehow got here. Happy watching.